Now we're ready to go with our next speaker. And we haven't even done her book yet. Usually I want the person to have the book out before they come and talk. But in this case, we had a cancellation to the one who was supposed to be here. She had to go out of the country. And Sherri's is under contract. Her book will be out in another few months, as soon as the conference is over. So I thought, well, we're kind of ahead of ourselves because I don't have the book here to present and to sell. But Sherri Cortland has written the book called Windows of Opportunity. And Sherri, again, is one that are the unlikeliest person to do this, just like Karen was. Sherri has been involved in the corporate world for a long time with business people. And she was really scared if she wrote a book like this, what will they think of her? You know, the business world, they think she's gone off the deep edge.
That's right.
So sometimes you have to do what you believe in and take a chance. Because it doesn't matter what somebody else out there thinks, as long as you do what you really think you should. So her book is The Windows of Opportunity. We're going to let her explain how you wrote it, how it came about, and what it's all about. And it'll be out in a few months, and we do send flyers out when the new books come out. I hope a lot of you are getting on our mailing list, the ones who are new to this. But we always send out specials on the new books and catalogs and all of that. Okay, let's present Sherri Cortland.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dolores, for having me here today. Really appreciate it. I am so honored to be here with all of you. I know I'm a last-minute substitute. I'm just so happy to be here. Let me begin by telling you a little bit about how Windows of Opportunity came to be written. All of the material dictated for this book was channeled through automatic writing. I'm pretty sure that most of you know what automatic writing is, and it's just one of the ways that Spirit can communicate with us or through us. And to me, it's just one of the easiest ways to do it because, frankly, they do all the work. You just have to sit there and they write through you. I love it. There are two things that I really love about automatic writing. And the first one is that, well, you're wide awake during the process. So it's almost like having a conversation with Spirit. And you can ask questions about the information as it comes in. The other thing that I love about it is that you have a hard copy of what comes through. You never have to worry about losing any of the great stuff that you get through a session. There's only one little tiny downside to automatic writing that I've ever found, and that's if you're like me and you save every single little piece of paper that you've ever gotten. And I see some of you nodding, and I have just binders and binders and binders, and they are taking up some very valuable real estate in my closet in my house right now. Don't like to give up that closet space. You know, there's absolutely nothing special about the fact that I do automatic writing, that I can contact my guides through automatic writing. Every single one of you here today, everyone can contact their guides through automatic writing. I think that it just takes patience, it takes perseverance to do it, because you might make contact the first time that you try, you might make it the second time, it might take a couple of months for you to make that connection. It's different for everybody that tries. And I was personally inspired to give it a try after I read the Ruth Montgomery books. That was back in the 80s. She wrote with an entity named Lily and also with the medium Arthur Ford when he crossed over. Well, I remember reading her books and thinking, she sits down at a table in her house and she talks to Spirit. Well, I just thought that was the coolest thing that I had ever heard, and I wanted to do it. I really wanted to do it myself, and so got myself a pen and paper, and I sat down at my kitchen table. And I sat there waiting, just waiting for Spirit to come and write through me, although I had no idea who that was going to be at the time. Well, I sat there day after day with my little pen, and do you know what happened? Absolutely nothing. You are so right. That's why I tell you, you have to have patience in the beginning. But right around the same time that I was sitting at that kitchen table, I was also taking a psychic development course in upstate New York. And one night the teacher announced, well, tonight we're going to learn automatic writing. And I thought, okay, I've been trying to do this for a while. This isn't going to happen. I was kind of laughing about it a little bit. And I was saying to the person next to me, this is not going to happen for me. And just as I was saying that, something grabbed a hold of my arm, and oh, I'm sorry, I'm making that make that noise there, grabbed a hold of my arm, going like this, circles and circles and circles coming out. My hand is racing around the paper, just racing around the paper. Well, I was so happy because I made first contact. I know this is not right. Do what? Pull it up? There? It's my necklace doing that? Okay. Pull this over to the side there. Thank you. Okay, so I had made first contact, and I was very excited about that. But I wasn't getting these big chunks of wisdom like Ruth Montgomery got. No. I was getting circles, tons and tons of circles. That's what was coming through. Now, I remember that night so clearly because my hand's racing, just racing around the paper, and I'm watching it, like, okay, I'm not doing that. My hand has a mind of its own, and I guess it had somebody's mind at that time. Everybody in the class was kind of watching, and the teacher yelled out, Sherri, control it. Control what? I didn't know what I was doing at that time. How do I control it? Well, after that night, I had no trouble at all making the connection again. In fact, I drew hundreds, maybe even thousands of the most beautiful circles that you would ever see in your entire life. But I got tired of those circles pretty quickly. I wanted more. I wanted those messages. I wanted messages. So I called my teacher, Cindy, and I said, Cindy, what do I do? And she said, Sherri, what you have to do is ask the entity who's trying to come through, ask them to identify themselves. And then, once you know who it is, ask them for a message. And I thought, well, duh, I should have paid more attention in class that night instead of staring at my hand. But I did what she said, and very soon the name Jeremy was written on the paper in front of me. And it turns out that Jeremy is one of my guides for this lifetime. So I began happily writing with Jeremy every morning before I went to work. Now, one of the things I did learn in that class with Cindy is that you need to do your automatic writing at the same time every day. That's because your guides have lives too. They have things to do. Who knew, right? But you should have a set appointment time for them. And so I chose the morning because my husband was already out of the house before me. It was nice and quiet. I could meditate a little bit first before I picked up that pen. As time went on, Jeremy wasn't the only guide that I wrote with. Other guides and entities would stop by for a little bit, give me their little bits of information, wisdom, and then they would go on. Alexa Pratt, Charles, Selena, those were some of them. Eventually, this is kind of interesting, eventually I could tell who was coming through just by the feel in my hand. Every entity had a different feel to them. Well, I loved writing with them every day. I was getting lots and lots of interesting things and was doing that for a few years. Then, sometime in 2003, I got some news that scared the pantyhose off of me. Jeremy told me it's time to write a book. Okay, I thought, writing in the morning, that's okay, but writing a book, who the heck am I to be writing a book? I didn't want to write a book. Well, Jeremy was very insistent about it, very insistent, and he brought up some contract that I supposedly made to do this, but I'm going to tell you guys, I have never seen a copy of that agreement. They have never shown that to me. Honestly, I didn't want to write this book. Dolores told you I did not want to write this book. It's true. I did not want to take that step out of the New Age closet. I was very happy in there, did not want to go public. But I'm going to tell you guys something. You cannot win an argument with spirit. At least I can anyway. And very soon it was just easier to get on with it and get it over with than it was to say, no, I'm not going to do it. But when I gave in, I had one condition. I told them, all right, you guys, if you're going to dictate this book for me, fine. Be my guest, we'll do that. But we're going to have to do it on the computer. I had never written on the computer before. I'd never tried it that way. But I was worried about my hands. I didn't know how long this book was going to be at the time. So they were cool. They were very cool about using the computer. They quickly got to work dictating the material that would become the basis for Windows of Opportunity. Now, you probably noticed I said they started dictating. That's because it wasn't just Jeremy and me working on the book. There was actually an entire group of guides who were giving information for this book. Alexa Pratt, who I mentioned earlier, he was part of it, Jeremy, and a few of my relatives who are currently on the other side of the veil were also part of the group. You see why I wanted to stay in that closet? Well, so the guide group, or the GG as I call them, includes some of my relatives who crossed over, specifically my grandma Nat, my Aunt Gracie, and my cousin Linda. Interestingly, my grandmother became the spokes guide for this group, for this project. The information came across to me as if we were instant messaging on the computer. It was just so easy to do. I was surprised. If I had known that, I'd have done that a long time ago. Wouldn't have all those binders in my closet. Well, that's how I started to do automatic writing. That's how Windows of Opportunity came to be written. But let's get to the good stuff. Let me get to the stuff that the guide group, the GG, specifically asked me to pass on to you guys this morning. And that is the concepts of relationship fill-ins and windows of opportunity. Let me throw this out at you the way that the guide group gave it to me first, when they first started to write for the book. What if the people who annoy us the most, the people that we just don't like, the people that are so-called enemies in this lifetime, what if they're actually our closest, most beloved universal friends? This is the basis for relationship fill-ins. And you know what? Rather than paraphrase for the group, I'm going to read you the exact words that they dictated when they first started to work on the book. We sit here and plan our lives here on earth. We are here with many entities, all of whom play many different roles in our many lifetimes. And our point today is that it is those who love us the most who will play the role of villain. This is because they love us enough to want to make sure that we accomplish what we wish to accomplish for ourselves, even when it means being perceived as the bad guy. The villains in your life most times are really your most amazing friends because they are sacrificing so that you can learn and grow. Sometimes it seems as though we truly dislike or hate someone, but that entity in truth could be one of your most beloved friends outside of this incarnation. Someone who loves you enough to do you a very big favor. So basically what the guide group is saying here is that when people do mean things to us, they're really being nice to us. I know, it's hard to get your head around sometimes. They're on the other side of the veil. When we're over there, they're our closest friends. But now we're over here, we want to learn a lesson, and so they've popped over and they're playing this role, this very mean villain role, so that we can learn a lesson. And they're making the sacrifice, because it is a sacrifice, so that we can cross a very important item off of our must-learn list for this incarnation. Right? Playing the bad guy, that's something that's done out of love. Now, the GG went on to say, you'll find relationship villains anywhere. You'll find them at home. You'll find them at work. Oh, you'll find them at school. Oh, the grocery store, even the Department of Motor Vehicle. They're all over the place. Department of Motor Vehicle, right? And of course, they are quite commonly found in our love lives, in our romantic relationships. Now, when I was first introduced to this concept, to relationship villains, the GG wanted to make sure that I really understood how did this relationship villain concept, how did that affect spiritual growth? What was the connection there? So, they asked me to review my past romantic relationships. Well, this is not a homework assignment that I was thrilled about, I'll tell you right now. I knew this was going to be an ugly little walk down memory lane for myself. And so, you know what? I'm just going to jump into it. Let me tell you all about my biggest, ugliest, worst relationship villain ever. When I first met this guy, it was all fun and excitement. He treated me like I was a movie star. He pursued me like I was a movie star. And then that ring went on my hand. Everything changed. Everything changed. It was like going to bed with one person and waking up with another one. It was like that. He became verbally abusive. In the end, even a little bit physical. It was hard to put into words exactly how this whole thing escalated, but I remember that it started so slowly that I thought there was something wrong with me for thinking that there was something wrong with him. Can you imagine that? But I thought maybe I was becoming overly sensitive, maybe misjudging the situations. It wasn't long before he tried to separate me from my family, from my friends. He demanded final approval on everything I did, sometimes even what I ate for lunch that day. I couldn't buy a dish towel without asking him first. I swear to you, he yelled at me one day for buying a new dish towel without consulting him. He didn't like the color. Sounds nuts to say it out loud now, but there's more, there's more. One day I stopped at Walgreens to pick up some photos that I had developed. Have you guys ever done this? Taken them out in the car because you want to see them right before anybody else sees them? You got to edit your pictures sometimes. Well, there was a picture of me. It was one of those terrible ones where your eyes are like 3/4 closed. It's just terrible. You don't want anybody to see it. So I tore it up. What would you do? You would tear it up. I sat the pictures down next to me in the car, forgot about them. He got in the car and saw them. Well, that's the day that I learned that only he could decide if a picture was good or bad. Only he could tear up a picture. Got a 30-minute lecture on that. He gave me the silent treatment for the rest of the day. He criticized my makeup. He criticized my clothes, even the way that I walked. One day we were walking into a restaurant, and he told me that I have the wrong ankles. Ankles can be wrong? Okay, all right, look, I'm just going to admit it to you guys. Look, I have cankles, okay? There's no doubt about it. I got the cankles. But isn't that something that he should have seen before we got engaged? Why is it an issue now going into the restaurant? Well, these kinds of things, they continued for about 8 months, And I'm going to tell you something. I didn't do a darn thing to stop it. I did nothing. I just let it go on and on and on. And I let these things happen. And here's what happened to me. I lost control of my own life. I gave away my power. And who was to blame for that? Who? Me. Nobody else, just me. It was all my fault. All my fault. Well, then came Emancipation Day. Emancipation Day. That was the day that he slammed me up against a wall and he spit in my face. Spit in my face. It was the first time anything like that had ever happened to me. I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do. And I remember thinking in my head, what is the protocol? What is the protocol for this situation? Like there's a procedure to follow when somebody spits in your face, you know? Well, it was just so foreign to me. Anyway, I pushed him away. I ran to the phone to dial 911. He was right behind me, pulling the phone out of the wall. I had no idea if the call went through. It did go through. The police showed up, and he moved out that night. Now, I said earlier that that was my Emancipation Day, but not because of this relationship. You know, yes, it was over for sure, but that wasn't it. The reason it was my Emancipation Day is because I learned a lesson that I had been trying to learn for a very long time, many, many years. It was the day that I stopped giving away my power. And it was about time, too. About time. But nice story, but what does this have to do with relationship villains? Well, my guide group tells me that I exploded into my power that day, and that this guy who spit in my face is actually one of my best friends when we're on the other side, right? So, a very good friend who decided that he would come over, play this very nasty role of villain for one reason, to help me learn the lessons that I insisted I wanted to learn during this lifetime, no matter what, obviously, if I was going to let him spit in my face. Now, notice that I said lessons plural. That's because as eye-opening as experience as that was, I wasn't done. I still had more to go. I still had more to learn. And to do that, I had to review all of my other romantic relationships. And I had to do something very important. I had to look for patterns. I had to look for patterns in them. And here's what I found. I looked at 4 other significant relationships that took place before the one I just told you about. Every one of them was essentially a kinder, gentler version of the control freak relationship that I just described to you. Now, each one of my men, in their own special way, attempted to control me. And early on, it was just such little things. With my first husband, I remember, so trivial this was, I wasn't allowed to buy Wonder Bread. I had to buy the store brand of bread. You know, crazy little things. But the common denominator became so clear. In each one of these relationships, I, me, nobody else, let these little things go on and on and on until I did what I did with the spitter. I exploded and I walked away. Now, what I didn't realize until I did this little mini life review is that I never addressed the things that bothered me in a relationship. I never tried to fix a relationship. I never tried to work on a relationship. In short, I didn't communicate. I just didn't communicate. I kept my mouth shut. I let things get to the boiling point, and then I left. No room for discussion, and certainly no growth for Sherri, right? Now, here's an amusing little side note. I have a degree in communications. Oh, I told you this was an embarrassing story for me. Well, it's too bad that it took me so long to learn this lesson, but once I did learn it, something really wonderful happened to me, and it happened pretty quickly, too. I was open now. I was free to move on to a much healthier relationship. Now, I don't want to mislead you guys. My marriage is not all strawberries and cream, okay? My husband and I, we argue. We do argue. But here's what's new. We talk things out. And that's something that I'd never done before. That's a big deal for me, to talk things out instead of just hitting the road. Anyway, once I learned these lessons, I was able to move forward. And as I moved forward, I lost something. I lost something by learning these lessons. The drama. All the drama was gone. My life was no longer a soap opera every day. And that's what it had become. And let me tell you one last thing about the spitter before we go on. After we broke up, he got a job in my company. Not just in my company, in my boss's office. I had to see him 3-4 times a week. I'm going to tell you guys, that was excruciating for me, just excruciating, because you know what? Understanding this relationship villain concept intellectually, okay, I got it, it's in my head, but having to see this guy all the time, oh, it was hard. And he kept badgering me. He wanted to talk to me. Finally, I thought, all right, fine, I'll meet you for a cup of coffee. Let's just get this over with, get this done with. Well, surprise of surprises, he apologized to me. He apologized. He said he was so sorry for the things that he did and that he learned so much from the relationship too. And then shortly after that conversation, he left the company and I've never had to look at him again. I know that sounds terrible, doesn't it? But that's because knowing doesn't necessarily make it easier, at least for me anyway. And with that apology and my forgiving him, well, our time together was now officially over and we were able to go our separate ways. I was happy about that. But according to the GG, when you confront a relationship villain, one of two things is going to happen. Either that relationship is going to continue, but on a much more palatable level, and that's normally the case when your relationship villain is a family member. Or you're going to go your separate ways. And you're going to go your separate ways because the mission that you two planned together, it's over, it's done. There's no reason for you to continue contact. Now, so that's exactly what happened to me and the spitter. We went our separate ways. There are lots and lots, though, lots of different kinds of relationship villains. And you know, not all of them come in to teach us a big lesson. Sometimes they come in to shake things up, to cause trouble for us, sometimes a lot of trouble for us. And their purpose then is to kind of get us on the correct path, or maybe even an easier path, or to stay on an easier path than what we might be moving towards. Let me tell you about a relationship villain experience I had a couple years ago that falls into this category. Well, I once worked with a woman, I'll call her Jane. My husband and I were very close to Jane and her husband. We did lots of things together as a couple. When I confided in Jane that I was going to leave my husband, that I wanted a divorce, she was so mad, just so mad at me. And she did everything that she could do to get me to stay with him. And the more she tried to talk me out of it, the more I knew I wasn't going to change my mind. And she embarked on this huge, just this huge Get Sherri campaign. And the more determined I was to get a divorce, the meaner she became. Just the meaner she became. Now, while all of this was going on, I was trying very hard to get promoted to the training department at work. Well, she got promoted to the training department at work. And I was promised, the next 2 times that an opening came up, I was promised that they were going to be mine. But I did not get those promotions. And I never, ever knew why. Until about a year later, after Jane left the company, I found out that she had sabotaged me. She killed both of my promotions, and she did it by telling the department heads things that were partially true about me, a little bit based in truth, but she twisted them around to make me look crazy, like I was a crazy person. One of the things that she said to management, she said that I said that I was from another planet. Well, I did say that. I said it. I did it. At a dinner party at my house. We had just come back from Casadega, which is a town in Florida. Lots of spiritualists and mediums all live there. And we were all talking about different readings that we had had. And I brought up the other planet thing because, well, I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was pretty cool. I had never heard that in a reading before. And let me tell you something. Jane was participating in this conversation, but I don't think she mentioned that to the big boys in the office. Well, she repeated part of that dinner conversation. She twisted a lot of other things she knew about me around to make me look crazy, make me look Looney Tunes. She turned my herbology classes into voodoo. She She turned my naturopathy classes into witchcraft. She even said, you'll love this, she even said that I sacrificed animals in my backyard. Are these not the things that you want to see on a resume to get into the training department? Jeez. You know, that last bit is almost funny if you know me, because I'm a vegetarian and I'm an animal rights activist on top of it. Crazy. Yeah. But in the context of relationship villains, let's look at Jane. Is she one of mine? You know, until all of this happened to me, I didn't think I had any enemies. I never would have thought that I had an enemy, but I'm going to tell you, I put her right into that category. She was my enemy now. But looking back, I have to say, Jane tried pretty darn hard to get me to stay with my husband. It was scary hard the way that she was trying to get me to do that. And my guides have told me several times that I did not have to learn that hard lesson with the spitter. I could have learned that lesson much easier if I had stayed in that relationship. Did not have to move on to learn that lesson. And I also ended up with a promotion that was a much better fit for me. I ended up going all the way up the corporate ladder to sales director. Had I gotten either of the promotions that Jane sabotaged, never would have got that career opportunity. It's almost like that old saying, good luck, bad luck, who knows? Just like that. You know, I put a lot of time into meditating about relationship villains, this whole concept, because it's so complex the way that it can play out in our lives in so many different ways. And often it reminds me of the term frenemies. Have you heard that term, frenemies? Okay, I see it on TV, often with celebrities like Paris Hilton, Nicole Richie. They're friends in private, but they're enemies in front of the paparazzi, you know, to make a good show. Well, I do think that Jane is my frenemy / relationship villain. And because like the spitter, just like the spitter, all the mean and nasty things that both of them did to me really improved my life overall. My life is better because of them. And while I really don't want to hang around with Jane or the spitter while we're on this side of the veil, I do have to say that I am grateful deep down inside to them for playing the roles of villains. Really, if I could, I'd nominate them for Academy Awards. I think they deserve it. Well, now we all know what a relationship villain is, but how do we get them? How do we get them in our lives? Where do they come from? This is where the windows of opportunity concept that I mentioned earlier comes into play. I'm sorry to do this to you, but let's go back to my love life for just a minute. Sorry. Every guy that I chose was basically the same guy. Different color hair, different name, different build, but all the same control freak personality. That's because I was living a life script. You've heard of life scripts, right? I was absolutely ensconced in this life script. And life scripts, guys, they're nothing more than a series of windows of opportunity. Windows of opportunity for us to learn a particular lesson or to repay a karmic debt. Windows of opportunity are messages from the universe. They're messages from ourselves to wake the heck up, open up our eyes, and figure out what's going on around us. We all have life scripts. We all have windows of opportunity. Let me tell you what the GG first dictated about this for the book. This is in their own words. Recognize earlier on the life scripts that keep you in the cycle of karma and the windows of opportunity that will get you out of that cycle. Recognize that a particular situation is something that you're here to work on, and you will take the steps through those windows much sooner to learn that particular lesson. We should look at the big picture by looking for script-like occurrences and evaluating what's happening with individual situations to see if there is a window of opportunity. If there is a window, we must go for it, and if we go for it, we will accelerate our learning. As we start to do this, we'll gain experience in doing so. This means we will work less hard when it comes to our lessons because we will recognize them earlier. Well, that sounds great. That sounds great from the guide group, but from a practical point of view, what does this mean? Speaking for myself, I created lots and lots of windows of opportunity so that I could stop giving away my power, take control of my life, and learn to communicate I should say it all, learn to communicate it all in my personal relationships. And you know what I did? I made each window progressively more difficult because I was hoping to shake myself awake. I really wanted to wake up. I wanted to learn these lessons. And had I spotted this particular life script earlier on, I would have saved myself a whole lot of unhappy relationships and a whole lot of drama. And not only would I have learned that big two-part lesson earlier, I would have accelerated my spiritual growth in the process. And here's a scary thought for me, not for you, not scary for you. My guide group informed me it's a good thing that I woke up when I did, because in their words, Sherri, if you thought that last romantic window was a tough one, be glad that you don't have to see what you had planned for yourself next. I don't even want to think about it. All right, back to these windows though. How do we get these windows? Where do they come from? We plan them for ourselves, of course. We're in control. We have free will. According to the GG, after we decide what we want to learn and accomplish during a particular lifetime, well, then we have to figure out how. How are we going to get the job done? And that's when we get to work constructing our windows of opportunity. Keep this in mind. Our windows are essentially situations that we create for ourselves to propel ourselves forward for the purpose of spiritual growth. That's what a window is. Long before we pop into our new bodies, we sit down at a planning table. We have a laundry list with us, a to-do list, all the things that we want to accomplish. The debts that we want to repay, the debts that we need to repay, all the karma stuff, but also whatever other experiences we want to have for the growth of our soul. Now, like an outline for a book complete with chapters, we, along with our planning committee, because we don't do this alone, we have help, we create a lifetime of windows of opportunity so that we will make the most of our upcoming incarnation. Right? Now, for each lesson or debt, we create a great big initial window, that first window, but we also create a series of backup windows for ourselves. That's just in case we don't get it the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, even the fifth time sometimes. Look at me. Look how long it took for me to catch on. Now, like what happened to me in my love life, okay, those windows become much more drama-filled, much more slap you in your face hard as you miss one and you go on to the other. Now, I just told you, we create our own windows, right? So we're responsible for how these windows are going to go. So why are we so tough on ourselves? Why do you think? Absolutely, because we want to learn a lesson. So we take a very hard line with ourselves. But also, let me tell you this, guys. We think that we are going to see that very first window when it pops open. When we're sitting on the other side at that planning table, we can be just a little bit cocky, okay, about our ability to wake up and recognize a window once we get to this side. We create the backup window, sure, we do that, but every single one of us believes that we're going to learn that lesson on the ground floor. We do not think we're going to go all the way up to the penthouse to learn those lessons. Again, while we think we're going to spot these windows early on, that really is not how it usually goes. But, and this is important, so if you weren't paying attention before, pay attention now. I'm getting to the really good stuff now, okay? If we take the time now to learn how to spot these windows, here's what we're going to do. We're going to help ourselves wake up faster, and if we wake up faster, we can get to work faster to co-create a less dramatic and more growth-oriented present and future for ourselves. Okay? So, if I may, I have some advice from the GG, a little bit of an action plan here on how to go about spotting windows. First of all, they say that there is no better way to get started than to do a little mini life review like I did and look for life scripts. Life scripts are very important to spotting windows. I've got some examples for you from the GG. First of all, if you continue to draw the same type of person to you like I did to me, the universe is sending you a great big message. If you're drawing similar situations to yourself like my nephew did when he had 6 fender benders in less than a year, the universe is trying to get your attention, don't you think? Absolutely. And if you continually have the same type of disagreement with different people over and over again, you're probably thinking, what's wrong with all these people? What the heck is wrong with them? but they're probably a type of relationship villain providing you with a nice little window of opportunity for growth. Now, where these windows come from, these windows will pop up in the most surprising of places. So I want to give you this little story just so that you'll be aware that they can be any place, any place. For a long period of time, I encountered nothing but rude people out of all places, the corner grocery store. People there, they were banging into my cart. It happened to me all the time, and I remember thinking, what the heck is going on here? Why are people so rude in this store? I even changed grocery stores because I just didn't like it. I thought, oh, it's just this store. But nope, those rude people followed me on to the next Albertsons. Well, one day, I was having lunch with a friend of mine, and I asked her for her take on the situation. She has a way of figuring these things out. So we did something a little bit different. We took a look at my behavior, my personal behavior in the grocery store. And what I realized pretty quickly was these little situations were not accidents. I needed to open up my eyes, and I needed to start paying attention and figure out what the heck was going on at the grocery store. Well, as I became more and more aware of my own behavior, I realized this. Well, I'm sure you guys do this too. You run into the store for something, you're in a hurry, right? You just want to get it done. You want to get home. You got to make dinner. You got things to do. Well, I was always in such a hurry, I tended to look down. I was never looking anybody in the eye, not at all. And I also noticed, and I'm not proud of this, okay, but whenever anyone accidentally bumped me off or cut me off in the cereal aisle, well, I experienced what I can only call cart rage. Absolute, total cart rage. And then it became abundantly clear to me that I had now begun to expect people in the grocery store to be rude to me. So what do you think is going to happen then? I'm co-creating this very rude reality for myself, right? So I decided to try an experiment. What can I do to put a stop to this? I thought, well, I'm going to pretend that every single person in the grocery store is an angel sent here to earth to test me, just to test me. And I was going to treat everybody that I ran into as if they were angels here on earth. Meaning, of course, that I had to be on my best behavior, right? So I started smiling at people. I would nod hello to people when I went into the store. If they went in front of me in the aisle, that's okay. I let them go. I smiled at them while I did it. I'm going to tell you something. It worked, and it worked pretty fast, too. Once I realized that this rudeness in my life was a life script, that I was repeatedly drawing the same situation, and it really was the same situation. I mean, I don't know why I didn't get it earlier. Drawing this to myself over and over and over again, it's because I hadn't handled it properly the first time, right? I needed an attitude adjustment. As soon as I changed my behavior, I walked through that window and that life script over and done with. And that's how you do it. You spot the windows, you change the behavior, you go through it, and you move on to something else. Now, before I digress to the grocery store, sorry about that, we were talking about spotting windows, and I had a little action plan from the guide group for you, and I want to continue with that. First of all, you have to examine your past. I know that it can be painful. I hope that it's not as embarrassing for you as the story that I told you at the beginning. It's painful, but it is the very best way to start to spot patterns and scripts in your life, the best way to do it. Secondly, I want you to pay more attention to what's going on with you now, what's happening in the present. You know, John Lennon said, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And he was so right, because we don't pay a lot of attention to what's happening right now in the present. But if you do this and you become more aware of what's happening with you now, you're going to see, you're going to be able to connect what's happening now to what's happened to you in the past. Do you follow? It's going to help you spot those windows much faster. And thirdly, I want you to look at the situations surrounding the people that you think have done you wrong in the past and right now. Examine them from all sides. Try to examine them with an open mind. It's not the easiest thing, I know, but you will start to spot those life scripts in those windows. Well, that all sounds like a lot of work, doesn't it? It is a lot of work. It's hard work, I know, because I've done it already. But I promise you, it is worth the effort. And very soon you will start to see your windows. You'll start to see your scripts much faster, much, much faster. Although, I have to share this with you. I'm going to tell you that something I discovered over the years of doing this. It is much easier, so much easier, to spot other people's windows than it is your own. If you don't believe me, ask your best friend. Just ask your best friend. She'll tell you all about your scripts. Now, remember this, guys. It is hard work, but the rewards for all of your hard work, so very cool. First of all, less drama, less pain in your life, accelerated learning, and accelerated spiritual growth. What more could you ask for, right? Thank you so much, guys, for having me here today. I really appreciate it. Questions and answers? Yes. No questions?
I happen to know that you have a lot of other topics in the book that are not just about relationship villains. Do you mind sharing
That's true.
those?
The book is called Windows. Thank you for asking that question. The book is called Windows of Opportunity, and relationship villains and windows of opportunity are throughout the book. And there are a lot more types of relationship villains and ways to spot windows than what I just talked about here. You'd be surprised at some of the relationship villains that we have. George Bush, one of our biggest relationship villains. The guide group did not love him so much, but they love Obama. Not to get all political on you, but that's in the book. The book also talks about human evolution and 2012 and extraterrestrials, reincarnation, karma, lots of interesting things in there that was channeled all through automatic writing. Thanks again for asking that question. Any other questions?
What did they say about 2012?
What did they say about 2012? They said, don't you worry about 2012. 2012, guys, 2012 is not something to be afraid of. It's not something to fear. All that 2012 is, it's the end of the calendar. It's the end of somebody's calendar. No big deal. Are we going to have a shift? Absolutely, we're going to have a shift. Is it going to happen on December 21st, 2012? I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows. Definitely a shift is going to happen, but it's going to be a kinder, gentler shift than what some people would lead us to believe. I think, well, I can tell you this. One of the things that the guide group told me is that if you want to have an easier shift, one of the things that you can do is to try and raise your vibrations. Raise your vibrations for the new age. And I'm going to tell you the single best piece of advice that they gave me, and that is this. It's so simple. You're not even going to believe me when I tell you this. Smile. Because when you smile at somebody, they can't help but smile back at you. And when you smile at someone, they're smiling back, everybody's vibrations are being raised. Not only are your vibrations being raised and that person's vibrations being raised, but the next person that you see and they see, their vibrations are going to go up. And what do you think that has an effect on the planet? It absolutely has an effect on the planet. It helps to raise the planet's vibrations. And so that will help to make the shift easier. So smile. That's the best advice that I can give you. Thank you so much for that question. Anyone else? Okay. Oh.
I was wondering if you could give another example of looking for patterns. So you shared the one about the relationship villain, and you were showing those patterns. Can you give another area like finances or personal health?
Oh,
just to kind of...
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. People draw, thank you so much for that question. People will draw, my sister, you can't even say a symptom to her and she doesn't get it. It's very interesting that way. But you draw to yourself the things that you need to learn a lesson. So if you're the type of person who continues to get colds all the time, you kind of have to think to yourself, why am I continuing to bring this to myself? If you play sports and you continue to hurt the same leg, maybe there's something there. Look for the patterns and the things that happen to you. My nephew had car accident after car accident after car accident. And he was blaming everyone else for it. This person did that. This person pulled out in front of me. This person did this. It wasn't those other people. It was my nephew. He was making it all happen. And finally, one day, he said to me, he said, you know, Sherri, he said, something's got to be going on with this, you know? And I don't know what it is, but just the act of him starting to think about that led to a change. He also said to me right around the same time, I noticed that I draw the same kind of person to me. Even though I want to change my life, I noticed that I continue to gravitate towards the same kind of person, and I keep getting in all of this trouble because he was in a lot of trouble for a while. And once he recognized that, he was able to move on from that. And I'll tell you this, where I thought he was going to end up in jail, he's now the director of a department in my company. He has over 70 people under him. So learning to spot those windows and recognizing them when they happen, it's very, very important to us so that we can move ahead and grow. But exactly what to look at, that's a hard thing to say, because I think that if you just go back and you look at your life, because everyone is individual, what are the things that continue to happen to you over and over again? What patterns do you see? What things keep popping up? What things do you keep hearing? And you know what? I made a joke about it earlier, but go to your friends, go to your family, ask them, does it look like I have a life script? They'll tell you. They'll absolutely tell you. And then you'll have that little tidbit of information. And is my time over? Oh, okay. They'll give you that little tidbit of information, and then you can use that little kernel of truth as the beginning point for you to do your little mini life analysis.
Part of her question had to do with money and patterns in money. Why don't you discuss that, how you could draw money to you, what you need?
Okay, well, that is very true. You know, the universe gives us what we ask for, and I promise you that if you walk around all day fretting about money and saying that you have money problems, you will absolutely positively have money problems. But if you expect that you're going to have all of the money that you need for the things that you want, that money is going to come to you. I have a friend who spends her money like there's no tomorrow. I mean, I have never seen anything like it in my life. Me, I tend to be a little bit more, okay, I'm going to save this much every week. She buys what she wants, and she expects, no. She knows that the money's going to come. And it happens every time. Now, I have known this woman for 20 years, and I have never known her to not receive the money that she needs for the things that she wants. She has it all. She is absolutely positively living that concept. I need a little bit more work in that area. I know it, I understand it, but I haven't started to practice it the way that she does. And if you have financial problems, again, that might be a pattern that you want to look at. And how are you drawing these things to yourself? Where is there a lesson that you can learn? So it really, the relationship villains, these circles, these windows of opportunity, they're in all different areas of our lives. Leave no area of your life untouched, no stone unturned when you're looking for them. I said it's hard work, it's ugly, it was not fun, not a homework assignment I like doing, but it was well worth it, because getting rid of all of that drama in my life, being able to move on to a nice, peaceful relationship, I just thank God for that every day. I'm so happy for that. And anybody can do that. Anything else? Yes.
This isn't a question,
Okay.
It's an addendum to the smile thing.
Oh, great.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all know how to smile, and I wanted to also, if you aren't natural smilers, both men and women can benefit because it's the fastest, cheapest facelift.
Okay. Well, I hadn't thought of that, but that alone is going to make me smile twice as much for sure. Never mind that Juvederm, guys. We just have to smile. I love it. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, then let's start smiling and get out and see the vendors.